Legend has it that when a person is about to die, if they bite down on a gold coin and hold it in their mouth, a mysterious organization known as the Revengers will appear to collect the body. Members of the Revenger organization judge the depth of the employer's resentment before death, based on the bite marks left on the coin. The deeper the bite marks, the deeper the hatred, and based on that, the Revengers choose how to carry out the revenge. Mana was the most hard-working courtesan. She could serve hundreds of clients every single day. She was practically a top-tier professional in the industry. The reason she worked herself so relentlessly was all for the sake of taking revenge on her husband. But fate had other plans. After long-term exhaustion and overwork, she had just been diagnosed with a terminal illness by Dr. Tepa. To comfort her, Tepa deliberately told her that nothing was wrong with her body, and that she just needed to eat well, rest well, and take care of herself. But Mana could tell there was something hidden in his words, because in her line of work, she was an expert at seeing through men's lies. Mana knew her time was running out. There was no way she could carry out her revenge personally, so she handed Tepa a gold coin with bite marks on it. In truth, she had already known that Tepa was a member of the Revengers. Tepa asked Mana what kind of person could make her hold onto such hatred even in death. When Mana was young, she met a man named Shohachi. He was handsome and knew exactly how to charm women. Before long, Mana was planning to marry him, but after the marriage, she learned that Shohachi had accumulated massive debts due to gambling. Under his sweet lies and manipulation, Mana was sold by him to the Amagia brothel to pay off his debts, and only in the end did she realize that Shohachi had been working with the brothel owner all along. They had been using the same trick to deceive other women into making money for them. To take revenge on Shohachi, Mana had exchanged all her savings for that single gold coin. Just then, Mana suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. She begged Tepa to fulfill her final wish. Even if she had to die, she wanted to drag Shohachi down with her. Tepa patted her on the shoulder and accepted the request, but he still needed to find a few helpers. Meanwhile, Mana's husband Shohachi was drinking. The owner of the Amagia brothel Denzo found him. Denzo told Shohachi that someone was coming to kill him, and that he should leave with Iwatesu to lay low for a while. But Shohachi had no intention of leaving. Seeing this, Iwatesu grabbed him by the collar and dragged him away by force. Soon after, Iwatesu took Shohachi and used the cover of night to leave the city by boat. At the same time, Tepa had already found another member of the Revengers. The man was shocked to see all kinds of strange weapons inside the room. Tepa handed him a pair of special boots. Then the two of them split up immediately. Tepa took position on a rooftop 500 meters away, preparing for a long-range shot. He took out a heavy bow with 3 strings, and then pulled out a specially made arrow. Even in the darkness of night, he could clearly aim at his target. With a single shot, the arrow pierced straight through Iwatesu's head. He didn't even have time to scream before he was killed instantly. Shohachi quickly swam toward the shore. He thought he was finally safe, but little did he know, another member of the Revengers had already been waiting for him. Before Shohachi could even react, his head was already sliced clean off. Meanwhile, Denzo had just finished spending time with his lover, but the moment he stepped outside, he ran into Neo, a member of the Revenger organization. Seeing how beautiful Neo looked, Denzo lunged at him without hesitation. What he didn't know was that Neo was actually a boy. Neo deliberately lured him into the room. Yuan had already been lying in wait. He immediately pressed gold leaf onto Denzo's face. Denzo couldn't even cry out for help. After a few desperate struggles, he stopped breathing. After that, Yuan took off his outer robe, revealing a tattoo of the Virgin Mary on his back, and began performing rites to absolve the deeply sinful Denzu. Raizo had originally been a loyal and patriotic samurai, but recently, he received an assignment from the finance magistrate Matsumine. He was ordered to kill his own father-in-law Hirata, because Matsumine had already discovered that Hirata was the mastermind behind a drug trafficking operation. Raizo hesitated again and again, but in the end, driven by his sense of justice, he struck down his father-in-law with a single blow. What he didn't know was that Hirata did not die immediately. Instead, using the last of his strength before death, he left a deep bite mark on a gold coin. The next day, Raizo prepared to report back to Matsumine, but on the way, he was ambushed by 3 assassins sent by Matsumine to kill him. At the very last moment, Raizo used all his strength and leapt off a cliff. The 3 assassins assumed he was dead and left the scene. Not long after, Neo appeared there and saved Raizo. When Raizo regained consciousness, he found himself in what seemed to be an odd job service. The two people inside looked like ordinary craftsmen, but what Raizo didn't know was that this odd job service was actually the gathering place of the Revengers. Yuan was the one in charge of the place. He took out the gold coin that Raizo's father-in-law had left behind before his death. Only then did Raizo realize that he had been completely deceived. The real drug trafficker was actually his master Matsumine, and his father-in-law Hirata was the one on the side of justice, because Hirata had discovered evidence of Matsumine's drug trade. Matsumine wanted to silence him. Hearing this, Raizo completely broke down. He no longer had the face to return and see his wife. Yuan decided to fulfill Hirata's request and take revenge on his behalf, but the target of that revenge was not Raizo. It was Matsumine. Raizo himself also wanted revenge against Matsumine. After everyone reached an agreement, they quickly laid out a simple plan. They decided to launch an attack from the back entrance at midnight. At this time, Teppa also arrived. Meanwhile, Matsumine was drinking with his subordinates when they talked about how Raizo had actually killed his own father-in-law. They all burst into laughter. To them, Raizo was the biggest fool in the world. Although Raizo could hear everything clearly from outside, this was not the time for anger. He decided to first deal with the guards in the courtyard. At the same time, Mio had already set up a trap. As soon as a samurai approached, his neck was instantly caught by a nearly invisible kite string. Unfortunately, the disturbance Neo caused was still too loud. It alerted two other samurai. They immediately stepped out to investigate, but at that moment, Soji suddenly appeared with lightning speed. He threw playing cards and instantly killed both samurai. As for Yuan, his method of killing was both unique and elegant. He would place gold leaf directly onto his enemy's face, causing them to suffocate to death. Afterward, he would remove his upper clothing, revealing the Virgin Mary tattoo on his back, and offer prayers for the sinful souls. From the image on Yuan's back, it seemed he had an unspoken connection with the Western Church, but what no one expected was that Raizo had deceived them. At that moment, Matsumine had already escaped through an underground passage, and Raizo had gone after him alone. Raizo lied because he wanted to personally kill Matsumine. He didn't want outsiders involved. With a furious shout, Raizo charged forward in an instant and struck Matsumine down with a single slash. In that era, murder was a grave crime, but at that moment, Raizo no longer cared. All he wanted was to return home and beg his wife for forgiveness. But the moment he stepped inside, he found that his wife had already taken her own life in front of her father's memorial tablet. This woman had truly endured far too much suffering. After everything, Yuan voluntarily went to the church to confess his actions. It turned out that the Revenger organization was protected by the church, allowing them to carry out killings in secret. Compared to hired assassins, they had a more righteous justification. That justification was revenge. If the dead had suffered injustice before dying, they would leave deep bite marks on the coin. And so, the Revengers believed they were carrying out divine judgment in God's place. Yuan firmly believed in this and saw it as justice. But now, there was a contradiction between theory and reality. That contradiction was Raizo killing Matsumine on his own. This act violated the rules of both the church and the Revenger organization. Clearly, there was only one way to resolve this. That was to have Raizo join them. Yuan even shared part of the reward from killing Matsumine with Raizo. This caused dissatisfaction among the other members, who were already struggling financially. Soji, in particular, was extremely unhappy. After all, he now had to share half of his room with Raizo. As for Raizo, he fell into even deeper despair, because in his heart, he no longer believed that he deserved to live. A few days later, Yuan paid a visit to the local magistrate Jinkuro, because Jinkuro preferred handling official business in the red light district. He had earned the nickname Pajama Police, but Yuan knew that this was not Jinkuro's true nature. It was merely a tactic to lull his enemies into a false sense of security. Then, Jinkuro tossed out a gold coin and assigned them a mission. The Revenger organization had long been under Jinkuro's protection, so no matter how you looked at it, they had every reason to accept the job. After some investigation, they discovered that Jinkuro's target had gotten involved in the opium trade and had harmed countless innocent civilians. So that very night, they began their operation. Razu quietly infiltrated the courtyard and swiftly took down several guards. Seeing this, Soji also made his move. The two worked in perfect coordination. moving with incredible speed. Before long, Raizo located the assassination target. The man seemed prepared, drawing his blade to strike first, but Raizo showed no urgency to draw his own sword. Because Soji had already arrived, the mission was completed smoothly. The next day, Yuan returned to the church with the gold coin to report, but the priest was somewhat displeased with Yuan's unauthorized actions. Calmly, the priest escalated the issue, asking Yuan how the broader opium problem was supposed to be handled. With no other choice, Yuan accepted another mission from the church and carried it out once again, yet this time, he received no payment from them. A few days later, a strange-looking merchant named Don arrived, completely disrupting the peace of the Revenger organization. Don claimed that he wanted to purchase an angel who possessed both male and female traits. The angel he referred to was none other than Neo. Yuan, of course, refused without hesitation, but starting that very night, a new kind of circus performance suddenly appeared in the streets. The townspeople had never seen anything like it before, and soon the streets were packed with spectators. On such a night, a pair of twin brothers accidentally lost their way and were captured by Don. Normally, something like this wouldn't involve the Revengers, but that night, Neo took the initiative to seek out Don. Seeing the man who had once imprisoned him, Neo's cold gaze carried a trace of complicated emotion. He then found the imprisoned twin brothers and tossed a gold coin in front of them. Before long, that very coin appeared at the Revengers' gathering place. It was clear that everyone had doubts about its origin, but after some discussion, they ultimately decided to carry out the revenge mission. That night, Neo dressed in elegant clothing and began the operation. Meanwhile, Raizo and Soji immediately moved into action. Their main task was to lure out the enemy, but unexpectedly, they ran into formidable opponents. Teppa, on the other hand, encountered a strong man whose physique rivaled his own. At the same time, Soji's playing cards were no match for the enemy's flying knives. Raizo, meanwhile, was trapped by flames spewed from his opponent. Seeing this, Soji quickly threw out a rapid series of cards. One of them cut through the fuel line feeding the flames. Raizo seized the moment, leapt into action, and escaped together with Soji. Meanwhile, Teppa also defeated his opponent. Yuan made his way to the dungeon and tossed over the keys, successfully rescuing the imprisoned children. As for Neo and Don, their final confrontation had arrived. At this point, Don already understood everything, from beginning to end. This had all been part of Neo's plan for revenge. He had intended, at the very last moment, to personally kill Neo, but he couldn't bring himself to destroy Neo's beauty because he had a twisted obsession with children who possessed unusual appearances or abnormal traits. To him, someone like Neo, with both male and female characteristics, was not a person, but a piece of art. In the end, Don chose to end his own life in a way that defied all logic and understanding. Perhaps, after years of living within his warped obsession, this madness and fixation had long since become the only way he knew how to exist.